Heal your relationship with money. You've probably heard that phrase, maybe in a podcast, maybe in a caption, maybe in a video exactly like this one, and something in you responded to it. A kind of pull. The sense that it was describing something you wanted. And then, if you're honest, maybe a quieter feeling right after that. Something like, what does that actually mean? Not the concept. You understand the concept. The daily life version. What it looks like on a Wednesday morning. What it feels like to open your bank app when that phrase has become true for you. That's what this video is about. Not the feeling of healing as an aspiration. The specific, observable, human-scale picture of what it looks like when it's real. Because here's the thing about that phrase that almost no one says plainly. It is used constantly and defined almost never. And that gap between hearing it and knowing what it means is not a small gap. It is the difference between a destination you can move toward and a destination you can only hope for. By the end of this, you'll have the first version. So let's start by naming what we've been told healing is supposed to look like. Most of the content that uses healing language describes a feeling, ease, flow, abundance, a sense of peace around money that comes when you've done the inner work and aligned your values and released your scarcity mindset. And if you've spent any time in the corner of the internet where this language lives, you know the picture it paints. Someone who wakes up and checks their accounts the way other people check the weather. Neutral, curious, unbothered. Someone for whom money is not the loudest noise in the room. Here's the thing about that picture. It's not wrong. That quality of relationship with money, that groundedness is real. And it is something people actually develop. But the way it gets described does something quietly damaging to the people who most need to hear about it. It makes the destination sound like a personality trait you either have or don't. Like something that arrives when you finally fixed yourself. Like a feeling that stays once it comes. And for anyone who has been carrying financial shame for more than a few months, anyone who knows what it costs to perform okay when the numbers say otherwise, that picture doesn't feel like a destination. It feels like someone else's destination. So before anything else, that picture needs to be replaced with something you can actually recognize from inside your own life. Not abundance, not ease, not flow. Something smaller than that. Something real, because here's what the research on financial anxiety and shame-based avoidance consistently shows. The people who develop a genuinely different relationship with money don't describe it the way the content describes it. They describe specific moments. The first time they opened the app and didn't feel their chest tighten. The first time they made an imperfect financial decision and didn't spend 3 days replaying it. The first time they said the number out loud to another person and didn't want to disappear. Specific, small, ordinary. That's what healing looks like when it's actually happening to a real person. So here is a concrete definition, not a poetic one. A functional one. Financial healing is the point at which your nervous system stops treating money as an emergency that requires immediate escape and starts treating it as a difficult thing that you are capable of managing. That's it. Not money feels good. Not finances are easy. Not I never feel anxious about this anymore. Here is what that looks like in a specific Tuesday. You get a notification from your bank. Your stomach doesn't drop. Or it drops a little, the way it does for anyone who has learned to associate that sound with bad news. But you open it anyway, not because it stopped being hard. Because it stopped being something you can't do. That is a healed moment. That Tuesday morning is not a wellness caption. It is not abundance or flow. It is a person whose nervous system learned that the threat of looking is smaller than the cost of not looking. And that shift, that specific unremarkable Tuesday, is what years of content about healing has been gesturing toward without ever just saying. Here is another one. Someone you're close to asks how things are going financially, and you answer. Not with the performance, not with the automatic, fine, yeah, getting there, with something true, maybe not everything, but something real. And you don't feel the specific burn of shame that used to come with anyone getting close enough to see the actual number. That is a healed moment. Here is another. You make a financial decision that isn't perfect. You spend something you weren't planning to spend. You don't stick to the category you set, and the next day, you don't catastrophize. You don't close the spreadsheet and not open it for 3 weeks. You note it, and you continue. Not because you became someone with more discipline, Because you stop treating every imperfect financial moment as evidence of a permanent verdict about who you are. That is a healed moment. One more. There is a number you know, not all the numbers. One number, the balance on the account that matters most right now, the current total on the card you're working on. One number, and you know it the way you know your PIN. Not with dread, not with shame, just as a fact about your current situation. A fact you can work with. That is a healed moment. None of these are dramatic. None of them require your debt to be gone, your credit score to have transformed, your savings account to have reached any threshold. They are behavioral shifts. Observable, specific, available to a real person in a real situation. That is the destination. Now here is the part that doesn't get said, and that absence does real damage. Healing does not mean money stops being hard. It does not mean the anxiety disappears. It does not mean the system that is designed against people at this income level suddenly starts working differently. It does not mean the student loan balance or the credit card debt or the 3-month gap in savings stops being real. The system is designed against you. The cost of living math, for a significant number of people in the income range this channel exists for, does not add up the way it's supposed to. That is not a personal failure. That is a structural reality. And no amount of healing changes that structural reality. So what does healing change? Here is the precise answer. Healing changes your response to the difficulty. Right now, for many people carrying this, difficulty with money activates a threat response, the kind that makes you avoid, freeze, catastrophize, disappear into not looking because looking feels like confirmation. A brain managing a threat, not solving a problem. What shifts, not immediately, not completely, but genuinely, measurably, is that the difficulty stops triggering the escape response. It starts triggering a different response. Something closer to, this is hard, and I know what to do next. Not, this is fine. Not, this is easy. Not, this no longer costs me anything. This is hard, and I know what to do next. That is the whole shift. And here is the thing that matters most. The thing that is the emotional center of everything this channel exists to say. You do not have to become a different person to get there. The version of you that developed a shame response around money, that learned to treat financial information as a threat, that built avoidance as a protection mechanism, that version of you was not broken. That version of you was responding, completely logically, to experiences that taught you that money was dangerous. The student loan you signed at 18 when no one explained what the payment would cost on a salary that hadn't happened yet. The years when the math genuinely didn't work. No matter what you did, the shame that arrived not because you were irresponsible, but because the gap between what you earned and what was expected of someone who earned that had no acceptable explanation. Your nervous system learned those lessons. It protected you the only way it knew how. And healing is not erasing that. It is not becoming someone those things never happened to. It is becoming someone they no longer define. This is not who you are. This is what happened to you. And the person who watches a video called What It Actually Means to Heal Your Relationship with Money, that person is already in the process of making the distinction. If what this video opened is something you want to go further into, not just understanding the destination, but building toward it with actual structure, there's a 90-day program in the description built specifically for that. Not a course about budgets. A guided process for rebuilding the relationship itself, week by week, with the psychology and the practical tools together, in the sequence that actually changes how a shame-trained brain works. The link is in the description and the pinned comment. So here is the question that matters now. Not, how do I heal my relationship with money? That's a long answer, and this video has started giving it. The question that matters now is, what is the one thing that begins it? Because healing is not a state you arrive at on a particular day. It is a direction. And directions begin with a single step that is small enough to actually take. Here is what the research on financial avoidance and shame-based behavior change consistently points toward. The first interruption of the avoidance cycle is almost never a system. It is not downloading the budgeting app. It is not making the full budget. It is not the debt payoff plan. It is one moment of choosing to know something you have been not knowing. One number. Not all the numbers. Not the full picture. Not the reckoning. One number. The balance on the account you most avoid. The total on the card that feels the most charged. The exact amount of the thing you have been keeping approximate in your head because approximate feels safer than exact. Go find that number today. Not to fix it, not to make a plan, not to do anything with it except know it. Write it down if that helps. Say it out loud if that helps. Just know it exactly. Here is why this is not a small thing, even though it sounds like one. The avoidance response is maintained by uncertainty. The brain that is managing money as a threat keeps the threat vague, because vague threats feel more manageable to avoid than specific ones. When you get the exact number, something shifts in the threat architecture. It is no longer an abstract danger. It is a specific fact. And specific facts, even hard ones, are things a brain can begin to work with. That is the beginning of a healed moment, not the arrival. The beginning. For anyone sitting with the objection that their situation is too specific, too far along, too complicated for something this simple to matter, that objection makes complete sense. The situation is complicated. The history is real. The number, when you find it, may be genuinely hard to see. And the step is still one number, not because the step solves the complication, because the step interrupts the avoidance. And interrupting the avoidance, even once, is the first evidence your nervous system gets that looking is survivable. One step, not a system. If this opens something and you want to keep going, the 90-day program in the description is built for exactly where you are right now. Link in the description and pinned comment. What would be different about your daily life if money stopped feeling like a threat, even just a little? So here is what is known now that wasn't known at the beginning of this video. Healing your relationship with money is not a feeling of peace. It is not abundance. It is not the disappearance of difficulty. It is the point at which your nervous system stops treating financial information as something to escape and starts treating it as something you can face. It looks like opening the app on a Tuesday and not feeling your chest tighten the way it used to. It looks like making an imperfect financial decision and not spending the next week in a shame spiral. It looks like knowing one number exactly instead of keeping it approximate because approximate feels safer. It looks like saying something true to someone you're close to about how things actually are. Not rich, not perfect, not someone for whom money is effortless, someone whose nervous system no longer treats a bank notification as evidence of a threat it can't survive. That is the whole destination, and it is closer, it is more specific, more ordinary, more available than the language around it has suggested. The person who searched for this video, who stayed through to here, that person is not someone who has given up on this. That person is someone who needed the destination described in terms they could actually recognize. That is not the behavior of someone who is bad with money. That is the behavior of someone who is learning to be in a different relationship with it. This is not who you are. This is what happened to you. And the work of separating those two things, slowly, imperfectly, with one small step at a time, that is what healing actually is. Your one step for this week: find one number you have been keeping approximate and know it exactly. Write it down. That's the whole ask. You've already done something harder than that today. You stayed with this one step. Not a system, that's how it begins.